Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the third book launch event of the day. Lost in the Love Maze by a bureaucrat author is a story of three young civil servants and academic who find themselves caught up in a labyrinth of requited and unrequited love. Miher is suave and intense, while Suresh is mathematically programmed. Jyoti is ethereal, while Sheetal is explosive. We are delighted to invite the author Mukul Kumar, as well as the chair of the session, Dr. Chetana Pokhriyal, Dean of the School of Languages and the head of the English department of the Doon University, to come to the dais. The moderator for the session is Ira Chauhan, a veteran of all past events of WOW. Ira is a communicator, playwright, poet, and actor, a bundle of positive energy all rolled into one. May I request you to please put your hands together to welcome the resource persons for the third book launch session in the Word Hall of the 7th edition of WOW.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Um, my, I'm really feeling very um, pre- prestigious, like sitting here with our own writer, because I've been assigned this duty to introduce the writer and let the flow rolling. But this is the book that I have been reading for the last 4 or 5 days, and it was such a enriching experience and such a beautiful book by our writer guest, Mr. Mukul Sharma, and before Mukul Kumar. And he is a bureaucrat, like she has introduced, and a novelist and a poet. And he's a civil servant belonging to the 1997 batch of the Indian Railway Traffic Service. Now his published books, I was totally amazed by the fact that how could a civil servant be so poetic and so philosophical, and so, because I understand the kind of job that they have been entrusted with, the kind of social responsibilities that they have. How could he take out time for writing so many books? But they were like, As Boys Become Men, Seduction by Truth, and Arzu Arshan. It's an e-book. And he has also released 3 poetry anthologies, The Irrepressible Echoes, Catharsis, and Rhythm of the Runes. So this is his 4th fiction, which came out in the month of November. So it's a latest fiction. And as I was talking to our celebrated author, because he told me that he would love to be recognized more as an author, more as a poet, more as a philosopher than the civil services, that he's interested with those kind of duties and all those things, which is of course the characters. The book that we have, before I'll move into the book and talk about a few part of it, I've been assigned only 2 minutes to talk about it. We have Miss Ira Chauhan, who would be moderating this session, and she's an environmentalist. So I felt very gratitude and felt very good when we were talking in the author's lounge, and we were talking about the book, and we were talking about each other, and we were we were getting abreast with so many things. She told us how many plants and the trees that she has planted in Doon University. So I take this opportunity to thank her, because today Doon University is a very beautiful, campus. So thank you, ma'am. As we were talking about, without losing time, and we have a time constraint, and we have to talk about the book more, because such a beautiful and a delightful read, that as I was reading, I read the book with my research scholars in the department, and we were talking threadbare about so many things, and talking about love, and talking about philosophy, and talking about marriage and the relationships and the intricacies of the relationships all into one. But then immediately I just want to share this anecdote. While I was reading the book, I immediately asked, when I was looking into the characters, I asked my student, show me the author's picture and the character that has been introduced. is such a good looking and philosophical and poetic and writer and all those things. I said he's the central character. So when I spoke to Sir, so he said no, although it is not autobiographical, but then the central character, the protagonist that we have in Jyoti and Mihir, the central characters in the book. So it is, they have been taken from his first book, As Boys Become Men, and they of the writers. So I was like thinking about it. I like immediately started thinking, why do the writers incorporate the characters? Either it is for the sense of continuity. I would like this question to be raised for the sense of continuity or for the development and exploration, more exploration probably which the writer has not been able to do in the first novel, or probably it is the Easter eggs, no kind of service, fan service that he has given to his readers, because it is a reward to the loyal readers, sir. When you are like taking the characters from the first book and you want to continue with the characters or adding extra layer of enjoyment for the readers, or it is like kind of like building the shared universe, or you have used those characters to rouse different faces. You wanted to know what kind of challenges or different challenges that the readers, these characters, if they are given, what would they do? So before, in between, I have more points, many things, many inquisitiveness, many concerns that I would like the author to tell. But because of the economy, like we have to economize on the time and the constraint that we have. So over to Ira for moderating the session.
Thank you, Chetana, for those opening lines and summarizing some of the novels so beautifully. Like you said, there's a paucity of time, so I'm going to keep it really brief. Though you have touched upon who Mukul is, I would like to add some that was left out. Mukul has been honored with the National Award for Outstanding Service to the Indian Railways, Bharat Nirman Award for Literary Excellence by Bharat Nirman Foundation, and Purvanchal Gaurav Samman for his contributions to society as a bureaucrat and writer. Lost in the Love Maze is Mukul's fourth fiction, which we shall be discussing today. So, Mukul, one can safely say that your genre is romance, though you did say it's more about relationships, but as I see it, it's romance. So, what would be your love language? If you could elaborate more, because there's a lot of philosophy, there are different characters which have a very different take on love. So what would be your love language?
Thank you, Ira, for introducing me, and thank you, Dr. Chetana, also at the outset to set the session rolling. First, let me answer the first part of your question, that predominantly my genre is romance. I would partially agree with it, yes, of course. Story-wise, I think it is mostly based on romance and relationships. But somewhere I feel as a writer that whenever I take up a theme and I take to writing, like it ends up as a very multi-layered kind of plot structure. And multi-layered when I say, like as Dr. Chetana brought out, like how philosophy, history, and all those things are woven into the plot, my manuscript. So somewhere those things also come out, and they constantly run in the undercurrent. So as a writer, it's very satisfying to me, of course. Story-wise, of course, it is romance and relationship. But somewhere I am able to weave those finer and deeper aspects of life into my plot. That is number one. Coming to love, I think this book, even before I could complete this book, I also thought, okay, love is love, as we take it, in general, okay, two persons. Love, mostly we identify with romantic love, no? Yeah. Like, mostly we identify with, with romantic love. After I, finished this book and I reflected back on my own work, I could, just infer that love has many hues. Even romantic love has many hues. In this novel, two main characters, female characters, are Jyoti and Sheetal. So while Jyoti stands for the romantic love, which is completely suffused with the exalted sense of sacrifice, she's all there to see how Mihir is positioned in his life vis-a-vis his family, and how he is feeling torn between me and his family. Of course, his family was not agreeing. So while Jyoti depicts that love, while there is another character, Sheetal, who, in spite of being aware of Mihir's relationship with Jyoti, pre-existing, ongoing relationship with Jyoti, and she feels completely infatuated with this guy, and still she doesn't give up, she doesn't walk out, and her love is completely powered by a fierce sense of possession. Okay, I have to possess him anyhow.
Right.
So, and there, if you just look from the reader point of view, I think Sheetal doesn't lose the sympathy of the reader in the sense that heart is heart, and it can, she ultimately, I think in one of the scenes, she says, "Your heart is heart, it doesn't know the language of reason." So she falls in love, and that is not my fault. The two hues of romantic love are juxtaposed against each other in this novel.
Yeah.
So that is the beauty of this. As a writer, it has been very satisfying. Moreover, the second tier at which I think love has been decoded in this book is that normally when we show the clash between family and romantic love, we identify that family with only sheer sense of duty. That smacks of drudgery. Okay, it is my duty, and that smacks of sense of a burden that you carry, which is coming, which is a stumbling block in the path of your love. But in this book, Mihir is a character who is at the level, even his soul is connected to his family, especially his father. So that parental bond is there, and that is familial love, you can say. Yeah. So that is the second plane at which two kinds of love are juxtaposed against each other. One is the romantic love, Jyoti, and this is the familial love. So love means, like Albert Camus always says, love is not only one. We identify love with only romance. No. Love for your father, love for your mother, and how these two loves can end up clashing with each other. So that is something very finer and deeper thing which I could bring out, and as a writer it has been immensely satisfying for me to, that is why I call it the story of love itself. Yeah. This is the story of love itself, how love has various ramifications, manifestations, and how it affects human life.
Meryl Streep's words from an interview have stayed with me, that women can speak men, but men cannot speak women. So what is your kryptonite as a writer? And I'm very intrigued, how does a man figure a woman's thinking, her feelings so beautifully and expresses them? Would you like to tell us some more about that?
I have to be careful because this question is laden with a sense of feminism, and Meryl Streep's this quote which you are quoting.
You've got me.
Yeah, it has been placed in some very different contexts where she says, women live in the house of men, and they want them to do. So, but coming to the last part of your question, how does a writer get into the mind of women? I feel, a writer, I think it is a very organic, this emotion and feeling which I am sharing with you. Like, a writer is everything. A writer, primarily, I feel, he's a psychologist first. Of course, you have to have that uncanny insight into the human mind, and then human action, and that establishing the relation between the mind of the character and the actions. And then he can be a social scientist, he can be a political scientist, he can be a historian, because he has to weave different elements into his plot. That is how a story comes out. And that is why there is a famous quote that a writer is everyone, a writer is none. But ultimately, you have to distance yourself from a particular aspect like history, social science. Ultimately, what comes out is the metaphor of life. That is why I always say such kind of books, especially fiction, is a metaphor life. Ultimately, they ends up telling the story of life itself. So while we take up the women characters, ultimately that there is an uncanny sense which makes you think from the women perspective also. And if you ask me objectively to just define it, how it comes out, or tell you how it comes out, it is a little challenging.
It is not a thought-through thing.
It flows along, and that is how a writer is a writer. That is how a writer you have to be. I think you develop the skill of thinking. Roundness in your thinking comes with a matter of time and maturity.
I would also add one has to be observant and sensitive, a sensitive human being, to be able to fathom what the next person's feeling. I would definitely grant that to you after having read the novel. Also, Mukul, I was quite impressed, being sensitive to the environment, that you often mention nature in the context of love or a scene, a particular scene happening. So there's a very interesting bit that you've written that I also appreciated. If you would read that excerpt to the audience.
Yeah, I would love to read out, because nature, as I told you, nature, as an artist, I can say it is an eternal inspiration, eternal source of inspiration for a writer, and it works at two planes. First, as an artist, it supplies you the metaphors and the similes. Many a time, if you fall short of description, or you are, as a writer, your words feel challenged, then immediately you borrow some scene from the nature to depict what you really want to tell. And secondly, like a very famous quote, very dear to my heart, and I feel like living this quote by a famous American writer, I think, Frank Wright. He says, "I believe in God, but only I spell it nature." Ultimately, if you stay at nature, it immediately guides you into the realm of metaphysics and philosophy. Who created this order? Such a beautiful, order. It inspired the sense of wonder in you, and ultimately it guides you to the question of God. The question of God, I say,
also
because in spite of that, there are a few atheists in this humanity, and not only atheists who are indifferent to the question of God, like agnostics. Okay, like Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he says, I won't get into that question whether God exists or not. I am doing whatever I have to do as a human being. So I was just read out that excerpt.
Also, I would think the divine love is the ultimate love, and one reaches it through nature in different ways. So absolutely, nature fits into love every which way.
This is the excerpt you are talking about. Nature is the closest friend of an artist, furnishing him the ultimate references of beauty and the surest triggers for the imagination. To a scientist, nature is as much a foe as a friend, who both fights and befriends it to not only sustain the survival, but also gives the luxuries. A sensualist believes that starving the senses to seek the soul is to surrender all for nothing, and thus limits his engagement with nature to rejoicing in its beauty and utility. To a mystic, nature is the guide to the soul, and the eerie wonder from its scientific rhythm, which is almost unfailing, and its wondrous beauty the most palpable reflections of divinity. A philosopher derives bliss from man's eternal curiosity to unravel the mysteries of nature, relishing the power to frame a different answer to the same questions, with full liberty to place it anywhere between the extremities of the senses and the soul. Hence, nature fosters senses as much as soul, sounds as much silences, matter as much as the mind. Priests exploit the mysteries of nature to concoct delusions for man, to offer him the much-needed escape from the maddening realities of life. Nature makes man feel like a Lilliput cast upon the earth amidst the incomprehensible order, all clueless, or a giant who is proud of the fact that man alone has the capability to celebrate at once the comprehensibility and incomprehensibility of nature with his intelligence and intellect. And last but not the least, to lovers, nature gives the varied theatres for the play of romance in its myriad hues, rains being one such in which theatre, Mihir and Jyoti find themselves on this day.
Wonderful. That's the piece I really loved, and I insisted he must read out to the audience. I hope you've connected to it as well. What do you do when a new idea jumps out while you're writing? Do you chase the squirrel, or I'm wanting to know about your writing style. Is it organic, or is it meticulously planned?
While I am already still into a work, I think it's a very pertinent question. Some other inspiring theme might grip my mind. And writer is a very greedy specimen, you know. बहुत लालची होता है writer. उसको जो मिल जाए अगर it's something really grips his sensibility, if he doesn't like to let it go. So it stays. But as a writer, I'm telling you, since you are so greedy, so you are so hungry for the themes which inspire you, that ultimately that stays in your mind and that becomes the part of your sensibility. As regards this, my writing style is purely organic. I write by inspiration. I don't take to pen unless I feel compelled to tell something. So first, at the outset, I have to be telling something which I feel that hasn't been set to my knowledge. Moreover, if not the theme-wise, at least the treatment-wise. Because as a writer, no writer can claim that he is touching upon a theme which has not been dealt earlier. But it is the treatment of the theme which is unique. So my writing process is purely organic. I write by my inspiration, by my heart, and my otherwise physically speaking also, my writing style is like I feel possessed with some creative frenzy, and then I would go on writing and writing in whatever surplus time. Like Dr. Chetana brought out, like we carry a very high responsibility, and that doesn't spare both time and sensibility wise also. Most of the time, I think all those things start, keep haunting you. But the moment we get some surplus time, I think all those time I'm able to devote. So I'm not a very consistent writer. I write in bursts, you can say. So that is my writing style.
Yeah, but one has to be very disciplined, because I'd like to share with the audience, until yesterday or day before when the three of us connected, I thought this was an old retired bureaucrat because he's written 4 books. And then he surprised me by telling he's still in service and he manages to write all these books. So you must be very disciplined. Do you have a number of hours set
disciplined
aside?
in the sense that, okay, I don't let any inspiration go waste, any inspiration or any like something that grips my mind and sensibility. So I want to do full justice to it, but many a time I think a time factor definitely comes into a play and it gets delayed. Like there are a couple of themes which I really want to write on as soon as possible, but time is not permitting. But I am very sure that at some juncture of life they will come out. Those stories are waiting to be told. Here I can see a few youngsters also. So I will just advise that there is no definite rule for writing, I am telling you. No definite rule for writing. The only thing, like you have to be writing every day, or you have to make out a regimen. Everybody ultimately comes to cultivate one's own style. So I think go by your style, listen to your heart, listen to your soul. The only thing is that I feel don't take to pen unless you feel really pressed. That is the one thing which I really observe.
Chetna, would you like to ask something?
I have a very question. You were talking about this more psychological than philosophical. Let philosophy come afterwards, because he was talking about, you referred also about the black hole. That mind is
In
like
my second novel,
yeah,
I have used it as a symbol, black hole.
as a symbol there. So I was just reading few parts, and there was like, oh, I'm a civil servant now. This is a part of the book. And I can safely say that I'm completely happy. Even marriage with Jyoti seems possible. The picture appeared perfect. So when I was reading this, I was also looking at from the lens of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He's a psychologist. And there's always a hierarchy of needs that he had mentioned as the characters take stand. Like your Mihir was like the character in The Lost in the Love Maze. He's like taking stands. Like he's like looking at the hierarchy, what should be kept first and what second, and what comes second. So it is more Mihir's contemplation of marriage here, or Jyoti, with Jyoti indicates his sense of self-fulfillment. And I think throughout the novel, whenever he's like visualizing his marriage with Jyoti, he's like thinking a sense of fulfilling his love and belonging. And he sees the possibility of forming a meaningful romantic relationship with family and family unit and Jyoti in tow. I just want to, before we move further, I have with us Ayush Kurian. He's my research scholar. He was there reading the book with me. Ayush, can you stand up? Because he read the book very attentively. I just wanted to take the opportunity and introduce him because he read the book with me and we like
Thank
we
you. Thanks a
all
lot for
those
reading the book.
observations that we come to there. So I just want to ask you that the sense of fulfilling love and the belonging that you have spoken about, and also the sense of happiness and contentment. How do you look into Mihir's happiness and contentment, and how do you like universalize it with the kind of responsibility, social responsibility he has as a civil servant?
First, let me take you back in time. Like you were talking about Mihir, who had just cleared his civil services exam, and he was predetermined that okay, my parents have done a lot for me, so it is my time to pay back, to reward their sacrifices. And he decides ki okay, let me marry according to the wishes of my parents, not because marriage involves some some like it is the question of decision making, the power to give power to take decision when you hand over in the hands of the parents. So Meher interprets it as a means of rewarding the sacrifices of parents. So you have to position Meher in that Meher, you have to view Meher as a young boy who had just cleared his civil services exam. But ultimately, he had he was sharing a very intimate attraction with a girl already, and he was not able to completely respond to her advances like that attraction. And it was a silent chemistry between them which was cooking up, which I had brought out in my first book, As Boys Become Men. So now, but gradually when she comes out of the blue in her life again, then he starts feeling torn between love and family. Ultimately, he is a young man, and they had shared that silent chemistry, that attraction is already there. Even attraction, I want to say, like infatuation. He was feeling, desired by a beautiful girl, and he was also having a soft corner. So that was the time I think I decided to like depict this conflict between the family and love. And while I say family, in this book, family has been treated in a very different way, not in complete opposition or juxtaposition to romantic love, but a boy who is equally bound by love to his parents. So there are two kinds of love, the love the juxtapose. So at the sense of fulfillment, okay, he says like he lands up in Missouri Academy and thinking, okay, I have cleared exam. Now the sense of arrival is there. I have been able to attain my ambition. Ambition ke baad, what next? Love also. The love, by then, I think they had already taken off. Their relationship had already taken off. And Meher was in the, caught up in the conflict. But when lands in Missouri, he says, ambition also done. Love also seems to be happening. So that is that moment when he is filled with a sense of contentment.
And this a question that I raised was actually, you refer to Albert Camus there in the book. And then absurdist idea of embracing the human experience is there in all the complexities and the contradictions and the paradoxes. So I just wanted your take on that, all the experiences and the complexities and the paradoxes that Mihir goes through.
Like the character, if you start tracing Mehir, I think in this book also it will come out, but if you trace his journey from As Boys Become Men, when I had, As Boys Become was, I confess that it was predominantly autobiographical. So, and Mehir as the character also, again, I confess his sensibility why it is me. Like when I, philosophy is the natural offspring of melancholy. So my sensibility is melancholic, so if you are melancholic, I think philosophy will come to you naturally. So Mehir is also very intense. That is why in the blurb I write Mehir is very intense. Very intense means his sensibility tends to fly into the realm of metaphysics and like philosophy. Who created this order? What is the meaning of life? Purpose of life? There, when I started studying philosophy for my own sake, I have never studied philosophy as a discipline. For my own sake, then that existentialism is a school of philosophy. Everybody is aware, that believes in essence, matlab God or soul. The question of God and soul comes later. It is first the man. Let us talk about existence. And like Nietzsche says, one of the famous existential philosophers, that the most pertinent, I think the most valid question before humanity is whether God created man or man created God. So that is the question that will remain unanswered. So as an existentialist, I think Mihir is drawn into the questions of life and existence. And there, when I started reading Albert Camus' absurdism, absurdism appealed to me a lot because howsoever, in whatever way, in whatever language you keep posing question as a man, like who created this order, who created this universe, what is our purpose of existence? Albert Camus says ki it is a curse, life has been given to you and now you have been asked to live. So absurdism comes where? Absurdism comes ki you ask questions but the universe is silent. And second interpretation is that still man will never abandon, give up asking questions. A philosopher keeps asking questions, even a general man, even we as layman can keep asking questions. Every now and then this question keeps haunting us, purpose of life, who created and all such stuff. That is absurdism. You will ask questions knowing fully well beforehand that these questions are never going to be finally and ultimately answered. So that is how absurdism has come to appeal to me.
Thank you, Mukul. Over to Ira.
Since you were talking extensively about Mihir, and you did touch that the first book that you started about Jyoti and Mihir, it was quite autobiographical. But I'm very curious, and I'm quite taken in by this character in Lost in the Love Maze, Mihir in this one. So my question to you is it therapeutic to write about people that you know and you form a character around them? And more directly, are you Mihir?
That I have already answered. Sensibility-wise, yes.
Apart.
But events-wise, of course, I think they are predominantly fictional. But sensibility-wise and experience-wise, I think thought-wise, I think Mihir is the author. And coming to therapeutic, like ये तो मैं मतलब it is a very palpable feeling which I get as a writer, not only as a novelist but as a poet also. Like the only way, like again I will go to Albert Camus, who says that the only way to lend that sense to meaning to life is to bring into existence that has not been existence before. That is what he says. As a writer, I feel okay, I have been able to create something new. So that is the only way to give, this is the writer's way of giving meaning to, assigning meaning to your life. Therapeutic, yes, because many a time you are haunted by your own actions. We are filled with regrets in our life, and we feel bogged down by the consequences of what we could not do or what we did, where we did wrong. Those consequences bog us down. Those actions, haunt us. But let me tell you, even if you write your own mistakes, I think you pour down words and the picture of life emerges. It gets metamorphosed into something sublime, I am telling you. You write about your own experiences, howsoever bad they are, howsoever bitter that may be. But ultimately that starts, coming back to you in some very sublime form. And you get really totally transformed, because that is why Iliad says the man who suffers is different from the artist who creates. So like when you write life, you write living and life will come back to you. It is I give words to the paper and the paper ultimately paints life for me. It is a portrait of life.
How beautifully said. Moving on. It said a true love story never ends. So from the first book, there's a continuation to the present one. I'm very curious, is there a sequel? Because you lead the story at a juncture where the reader is very intrigued and wants to know what happens to Suresh, to Sheetal, because they're all left without what they were chasing. So they're left at a juncture where there's scope for another book. So is there a sequel?
Even, when I reflected back on this work, which never occurred to me as a writer while I was in the process of writing, that 4 characters, 3 loves. The one two-way and 2 loves are one-sided. And ultimately, at the end, all of them are left alone. And let me share, in order to answer that question, let me share a very heartening experience. Like before this novel happened to me, I thought that a writer write only by their sheer inspiration, what grips their sensibility, as I was sharing at the outset. But never did I know that something like readers also might feature in that scheme of writing And as boys become men, many readers, like I got the feedback from many readers, that Jyoti writer has not allowed the character of Jyoti to grow. And Mihir Jyoti romance, where I think it left much to be desired, and it was absolutely premature. It was not fair on the part of the, that protagonist Mihir. Ultimately, they blame you, and ultimately, even a character is unable to meet the demands of the readers, then ultimately the writer that is blamed. So they said कि वो Mihir Jyoti का romance was left in the lurch, and Jyoti, even a few people tell कि you are a male chauvinist, you have left left Jyoti in the lurch. That somewhere kept churning me. That kept churning me, and the basic idea emerged from those that feedback from the readers. कि, okay, let me take Mihir Jyoti chemistry forward. But ultimately, when I say that, not everything what the reader wishes, the writer's sensibility can respond. But this particular aspect, I really felt inspired enough to take to pen in order to write a new novel. So this is the sequel, and I don't know whether some feedback might come, Sheetal ka kya hua ye, and all those things. These feedback may again drive me into some another book, which might end up as a sequel to this one.
Okay, I have many more arrows in my quiver, but I can see the others gesturing that it's time up. We have 2 more minutes to go, or are we done? Okay, so Mukul, would you read the epilogue to us? That was really interesting, and yeah, that would be nice.
Epilogue is like Mihir. Now Mihir is in this midlife, midlife, and he is writing the story of his love. So it is like he is moving out from office in Lutyens, Delhi. From ministry, he has just finished this story of his past, and how he is feeling. I would share
Also,
that emotion.
Mukul, would you be open to taking questions from the audience if we have the time?
Sure.
So while he's reading,
Instead of reading, I think I can take up the question, whatever you want.
I think you should start reading. In the meantime, if you can come up with get your questions ready, and if we have the time, then you can, yeah?
It is the emotion of the protagonist Mihir, who has finished writing the story of his love in the past with Jyoti. And now in the midlife, he is working in the ministry in Delhi. And he has just finished the book, and he is walking out of the office and decides to get down out of the car and reflect at this Lutyens. Because Jyoti had I think, told him that one day you will write our love story. Yeah. Finally, Mihir has fulfilled Jyoti's wish to write the story of their love someday. And this day is that someday. When Mihir has finished writing the story, almost 20 years have passed since the day Jyoti made the wish. The day after, when Mihir reaches the ministry in Lutyens, Delhi, his present office in the city, he is under the spell of intense emotions. While returning from his office, the sight of Rajpath instantly reminds him of his bike ride with Jyoti and her words that sometime in the future he would adorn a chair in one of the Lutyens buildings. He decides to get down from his car and take a stroll along the fated Rajpath, emotions welling up inside. His mind reflects, Jyoti, I met your prophecy, and the feeling is again fabulous. Your words, sacrificing lover for love with central reference library as the witness, reverberate through me, bringing a new revelation. I feel your love was truly unique, more heard than seen, simply fated. Your love found consummation in our separation and showed how sacrifice could breed a sublime pleasure. Plato wished that ideal city, which for him was Callipolis, should be ruled by a philosopher king, as he wished for the union of power and wisdom. And for a political capital, what wisdom can be more relevant than the one which professes sacrifice? Is politics not about power with service? And is sacrifice not the soul of service? Today, as a bureaucrat, I feel that in giving Delhi, this political capital, the monument of love, you have ended up giving it a monument of greatest wisdom in which the sacrifice breeds a sublime contentment. And what can be a better monument than a library which is the house of wisdom? The thrill Mihir feels is poignant and ignites his melancholy into a brilliant glow. He drives back with tears of ecstasy.
Beautiful. Chetana, would you like to sum up?
First of all, I'll request the audience, the August audience, for go and grab the copy today. It is there with the stall of Natraj Publishers. And if you want, you can I know you want, it's a great pleasure to get it signed by the author. Um, Sir, just before we like continue with that, I was like going through the language of the politics of language that you have used even in the book. And like I was like grabbed by the single line, what was the imperialistic power of love can win even Mihir over to a love marriage. So I was like caught in between imperialistic A, B is the power of power, and then love. So how can all these coheres into one line? How can it be like put in one line together? So I just want your take on this one line, like what I was reading to, and I get quite intrigued by the sentence. So would you like to throw some light on that? And
Yeah,
then, then I have one more example.
I think all of us fall in, most of us rather, fall in love at some point or the other. And in love, I feel like both lovers are both masters and slaves to each other. That is the only emotion where you love to be ruled also. Being ruled also feels so beautiful. So, and ruling over others when the other lover surrenders to you, that also gives you the feeling of power, completely having sway over the other person. So it is like works both ways, like you are both slave and masters to each other. In that sense, I have used the word imperialism. Ki love out of that sense of like sense of love. Mihir, who is bound to another love for his parents, might get torn from there, and he may agree with for the love marriage that he seems to be almost doing here.
Or love towards his profession as well, that his commitment is there for his the kind of profession. So okay, there is one more example that was like you have written at one point his intense forays into Gandhi's writings, which suggested that some womanliness in a man made him a better human being. So when I was going through this, the specific writings, what kind of writings of Gandhi that you have spoken about, so I'm not going into that. But how does it imply with Mihir embracing civil services and womanliness, or were you talking about making man a better human being? Or you're talking about the virtues and the human character there?
I think
True,
yeah.
true.
Women are
I think
all
I think
heart.
Gandhi
Women
said
are all
somewhere,
heart
no,
is what man is trying to say.
a little of woman in a man makes him a better man. And here I think in the context, I will just quickly explain the context in which this particular sentence was said. Like Jyoti is being alleged, I think, some unwelcome gaze is there upon her from a Muslim guy in this thing. And that Muslim guy had fled from this after the demolition of Babri Masjid. He himself escaped from there, and he suffered the trauma of being in minority. And still here he is ledging at a girl, making her feel uncomfortable, cozily forgetting that he himself has suffered that trauma, and he is putting to trauma some girl. That is why I write Mihir, when he drops her at home, sees her off at her home and returns, so that thing stays in her mind. And as I say, he's a melancholic person, easily gets into the deeper and
More,
finer
yeah.
aspects of life. So he starts thinking ki a little
So-
of womanliness in man. If it is there in us now, so the entire sexual violence which is happening around us and which is really bothering, it is one of the most burning questions
Yeah.
before humanity. That will not happen somehow.
So
Yeah.
yes, when I was like looking into this, I was like thinking about aligning it with the absurdist perspective of human condition that you were talking about. I was not looking it from the polarized view of men and women.
एक और absurdism का एक और implication है जो people now they have started interpreting Albert Camus. I am not very sure whether he also, I think, explained it somewhere that the good did not happen to the good. अच्छों के साथ अच्छा होता है ये this it doesn't happen. Even good people suffer in the society. So that is another very simplistic interpretation of absurdism. We can see absurdism all around us.
Do we have time for one question from the audience? Would anyone like to ask a question? Manoj, please. Could we? Very nice. Very
Very
well
nice.
said.
I would begin my answer with the quote of Oscar Wilde. He says कि a book can never be finished, it has to be abandoned. So, okay. So, and as regards like fiction, especially fiction, के साथ कि you have to, if you really want to do justice to that, your own writing, you have to develop the reader's perspective. And the only way to develop reader's perspective is to let push the manuscript under the carpet for a while and then revisit it after, for some time. This also I have learned. I'm not saying when I took up my first fiction, I was not this wise as a writer. This I have learned, I think, learning by doing it is. Now I realize, okay, when I look back at my first novel, that was my first experience, and let me tell you, editing-wise and structure-wise, I think I'm highly dissatisfied with that book as a writer. Second book was much better because by then I had learned how to develop the reader's perspective. So that is why I am really happy, structure-wise, but the plot-wise, I think the most brilliant work still remains As Boys Become Men. It is multi-layered, and that is why a publication like Rupa grabbed it in the first go. Every year we give, opportunity to a new talent, and this work has really appealed to us for the simple reason that it was multi-layered. And when the Hindu reviewed that novel, that top review which they had given, which had been posted on the second edition of the book, the writer so intelligently weaves in the elements of history, religion, and philosophy into the book. So that is my hallmark as a writer, that I keep weaving in the elements in order to produce my multi-layered. So now, very well said. I think it is a very valid question. I keep revisiting, but still, I have never read any finished work of mine in the book form, because I feel again I will be filled with dissatisfaction. This is not the time to fill with yourself with dissatisfaction. And Oscar Wilde का वो बोलना मुझे बिल्कुल palpably I feel you can't finish a book. It has to be. अभी पढ़ूंगा तो बहुत सारी चीज लगेगी यार, इसको तो थोड़ा अलग कर सकते हैं. Like that.
We could go on forever. The conversation is free-flowing. The audience is enjoying it, but there are time's up. Thank you so much for being an engaging audience. Thank you, Mukul. Thank you, Chetana. Thank you very much.
Let me conclude. Heartfelt thanks to Valley of Words for providing me this platform so that I could connect with my readers, and a wonderful audience. Thanks for being there and encourage me as a writer.
Allow me to thank the chair, Dr. Chetana Pokhriyal, and the moderator, Ira Chauhan, for drawing out the best from our author, Mukul Kumar. A special word of thanks for the lovely audience. You have indeed been very good. Now, I would like to invite Manoj Parthwal, sir, to felicitate the gathering.